Alright, howdy everyone. It's now time to discuss Chapter 5 of Make Your Mark, which had the audacity to release during my moving week. First up is Cutie Blossom Bash, and this one's actually about stuff G5 is supposed to center around for once. It's about a marriage of cultures, a celebration of change, turning new chapters. It has some genuine world building. We get to figure out what cutie marks mean, what they're for, and it's primarily about Misty, and which is fair because this episode has a lot of responsibility to develop Misty, and she struggles quite appropriately with her late development. Like, if I've brought up anything about G5, it's how late they've developed Misty's character and how little they've done to support her having a real personality. But this episode tackles that. It asks questions like, what does it mean to be an authentic person? And yeah, there's that traditional, oh, everyone misunderstands Misty's story going on, but everyone does apologize and explain the gaps in their reasoning in a healthy way. And it all ends with a sweet gesture atop that. It gives you a real sense of hope for the future. Very little to complain about. Could have probably been paced a bit tighter. Episode 2 and 3 are a two-parter. They're titled Family Trees. Probably should just combine them into one big episode. It's Netflix, you can do that, but whatever. Basically, it starts with everyone irrationally overanalyzing Misty's dreams. It's like, yeah, her dreams are obviously mystical in nature, but that's not an excuse for the way Zip or anyone else reacts to them. The themes of this episode are centered around found family and hereditary family and the value those bring to people's lives. It does over-focus a bit on how important found family is, but I think that's fine. Found family has been a theme in G5 in general, and they do it pretty well here, even if it is accompanied by a sickly sweet musical number. I don't think that was necessary exactly. This episode also is really obsessed with the aesthetic of fantasy. Like, there's all these gorgeous, high fantasy, majestic, mystical trinkets and this marketplace of lost antiquity. And yeah, like I was saying, it nails the aesthetic of fantasy, but not necessarily the spirit. You got your motley crew trotting into these visually distinctive forests full of slumbering giants, the giants being dragons, and it's, you know, if you're into it for just the style, it's there for you, but there's nothing of substance. There are so many magical things which will go unexplained, so many pieces of lore which will go unexplained, and it further drives home the real problem with G5, which is that the writers keep stacking new plot elements on top of new plot elements with seemingly no intent to ever resolve them or any clue what the previous writers were even doing. So the themes of this episode, great. The style and aesthetic of this episode, pretty stellar. Anything of substance beyond the themes just isn't there. Episode 4 was Father of Bridlewood and is probably honestly the best episode of the bunch. It deals with some loose threads left behind by the themes of episodes 2 and 3. It's about Alphabeetle trying to reclaim what was lost, trying to make up for lost time now that he's found out that Misty is his daughter. He wants to reconnect with her in all the ways he used to love her, rather than appreciate what she is now. And this is made even worse by the fact that Misty doesn't understand herself yet. This is her first chance to be a real person, and she's being suffocated by her lost dad. This episode posits that who we are is in fact shaped by who we were, but we're also not who we were. And it's not bad. It's really not. But it is rather one note, and the B-plot is kind of inconsequential. It does feature the most powerful line in the entire show, though. Like, I have absolutely no complaints about the dramatic resolution to the themes and plot in Episode 4 in particular. Episode 5 is titled Main Smelody, and it really feels more like a Tell Your Tale plot. It starts with Pip finding an all-natural hoofshine in Bridlewood, but it's very stinky, and no one tells her it's very stinky. This gets dragged on forever. Like, we cut back to the main Melody salon so many times, and the conflict is exactly the same as the last time we checked in. It just drags on and on. The overarching story development that they do in the B-plot is completely nonsensical to boot. Like I said, they just keep stacking more and more crazy plot elements on top of each other, with seemingly no idea where they're actually headed. Who's steering the ship? They keep switching between writers. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully it all pulls together into something meaningful. Episode 6, the last one, Nightmare on Main Street. It features this important festival, specifically important to Hitch, and everyone has their own ideas of how it's going to go. You've heard this song and dance before. Hitch can't drum up excitement. Sunny can't recreate her perfect memories. Pip has too high expectations for her little haunted house, and it all falls apart in very, very tame ways. I will say that at least there's real conflict here, unlike in Winter Wish Day. This is much, much better than Winter Wish Day, and it's really nice to see Pip express her perfectly spooky passions again. I do love that about her. And I guess that's it. It really doesn't feel like a lot when I spill it all out like that. They introduced some new ideas, and ultimately chapter 6, is it? Chapter 5, whichever it is, feels completely different from every previous chapter. But that's also something you can say about every previous chapter. Chapter 4 felt nothing like Chapter 3. Chapter 2 felt nothing like Chapter 1. Chapter 1 felt almost entirely distinct from A New Generation. This show has almost no consistency. So while I can tell you Chapter 5 is an average fantasy cartoon, right? Average fantasy adventure cartoon for children. It's not offensively bad in any way. It's okay. I have no idea what's going to happen in Chapter 6. It certainly didn't build on what happened in chapters previous, but it did tackle the problem of Misty having practically no personality in a meaningful way, so I am grateful for that. And now that we've reached the end of the video, it's time to talk about something else I am quite grateful for, that being the lovely people supporting my Patreon. In order, I will be thanking them, and they are Ipompus, Anonymous, Jay, Marth Sinclair, The Roses, Sam Anderson, Some Call Me Anto, Waposa, Mint Horse, Mike Hansen, Kay Storkson, Zuzu, Igor Oliveira, Hawthorne Bunny, and Folly Boyo. Just a reminder, if you also pledge to my Patreon, I will make a video essay based on the media you recommend. Thank you all so much for your time and efforts, and I hope you enjoyed the funny horse cartoon.